Bill C-9 is coming, and with it, certain jail time for saying things like women don't have penises and sodomy is bad. Also, Canada is a medical dumpster fire full of murder and bloodshed. And what better way to end this Marxist, masochist meal than a news story with a dessert sprinkled with some Canadian happenings? Advent is underway, so here are some lyrics from one of my favorite Christmas hymns, O Come All Ye Faithful. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exultation. Sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, all glory in the highest. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. It's December 5th. I'm Andrew DeBartolo. That's Matt Hallick. This is Liberty Dispatch.
Hey, and welcome back to Liberty Dispatch, where we bring you Canadian conservative news and analysis from an unapologetically Christian perspective. If you like what we do, you know what to do. You can help us by hitting that subscribe button, by hitting the notification button if you're catching us on YouTube, by liking, subscribing, sharing, doing whatever you can to get the content out to more people. We can't continue to build our show if you don't help us do it. So please do that if you want an unbelievable amount of content and more content as we come into the Christmas series with a series of interviews that we have lined up, a bunch of extra content that was only going to be behind the paywall, right, Andrew? It's over there at ldcanada.substack.com. You have to become a paid subscriber at a very nominal amount on a yearly basis to make sure that happens. So please do help support us, because we're bringing news and analysis from a Christian perspective that you're getting absolutely nowhere else on a consistent basis in Canada. So please do help us as we continue to fight this battle and continue to look at the dumpster fire of Canada through the lens of Scripture, and hopefully provide benefit analysis and cultural commentary for you all as we think through these issues together for the glory of Christ. So ldcanada.substack.com. Get all this stuff over there. Really appreciative. Andrew, good to see you, buddy. How are you?
I am excited for Christmas, as I should be. Yes. Because Christmas trees are not pagan idolatry symbols from Jeremiah 31. And because Christmas carols are to be sung loudly, and because December 25th is not a hijacked pagan festival. These are all just bogus. I would recommend, actually, if you go on Wes Huff's Facebook page,
yes, he has
this amazing infographic he's put out that he releases every year. Mm-hmm. And he basically smashes into a million pieces all these terrible anti-Christmas myths. Mm-hmm. And there's good stuff. Even the date of December 25th, even the way that the early church understood that if you look at the, annunciation of his birth, and if you track 9 months gestation, it's probably the case that his birth is around December 25th. And that was decided long before any weird pagan festival was hijacked by that's all smoke and mirrors as a way to, same thing with Easter. It's all smoke and mirrors as a way to undercut the reality of a Christian worldview having been very much instantiated for 2,000 years. We celebrate Christmas. We celebrate Easter. These are not pagan festivals that we have just rebranded. These were church celebrations all the way back to the Reformation. We see Luther talking about the decorating of trees and the lights. And even before it was a tree, it was simply the wreath or the evergreen. Like the history is there. And
the symbology is rich, and it's important.
Go to my screen. You can see right behind me over here. Go big. Here we go. You pan over a little bit. I turn the lights off because it's distracting. But our tree is up and running. And then behind me right over here is our nativity scene, not second commandment it's second commandment friendly. No two CVs in the nativity scene.
Important
And the Christmas tree
things.
over there.
Yeah.
Important things. No two CVs
Yeah.
in the nativity scene. It's just a manger, and you see like the back of a baby's head. It's great. So I'm super excited about Christmas. My kids are excited about Christmas. I've been listening to Christmas carols and hymns. This is an exciting time of the year. We remember the incarnation.
And we're going to
It's
be
all good stuff.
you picked a great hymn. We're going to be singing that this coming Lord's Day for our Song of Ascents as we kind of move from our confession of sin into our confession of faith, because it perfectly fits the choir of angels, which is not just the heavenly host, but angels are messengers, and we, those who are redeemed in Christ, are a part of the heavenly angels who are singing forth the glories of our Lord Jesus Christ. And what a wonderful time of year it is, where even in our apostate context, people still take time out of their lives to celebrate this amazing high Christian festival.
I'm working part-time at Sport Check.
Yeah.
And people are saying happy holidays, and I'm like, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you.
Nope.
Yep.
It's a Merry Christmas. Yeah.
It's all about Jesus. That's the end of that. Merry Christmas.
I love it.
So I want to make sure you know, dear audience, mark your calendars. December 19th. Friday, December 19th will be our 350th episode of the Dispatch Extravaganza.
And it is going to be that.
It'll be the last episode of 2025. It will be the last episode for yours truly, and it is going to be chock full. So I'm just going to give you the deal. We will have portions of 7 interviews featured in this episode. You're not going to get the whole interview. We're going to do maybe 10, maybe 15 minutes max of a portion of each of these interviews. And the only way to get the full interview, which range anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, some of them are like an hour.
Yeah.
The only way to get the full interview is to become a paid subscriber. You can get them after the fact, but let me just give you the deal. So you're going to want to make sure you catch this episode on the 19th, and also you're going to want to become a paid subscriber to get the full interviews. We have, in no particular order, Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Joe Boot, Pastor Aaron Rock, Pastor Alex Kloosterman, John Carpay, Pastor Doug Wilson, and hopefully, if we can sort it out, we'll have a special drop-in visit from two
troublemakers,
two unnamed guests as of just yet, other than to say one is a bola de fuego and the other is T-Bone. We'll see if we can sort it out. That's all I'm going to say for now.
That's a deep cut.
I was watching that episode the other day. That's a deep cut.
For longtime LD listeners, you will have an idea of whom
December 19th
Andrew's talking about.
December 19th, you're going to want to catch that episode and share it out, and you're going to want to become a paid subscriber if you want to see the full. So let's think about it. There are 7 interviews. And if the average length is 45 minutes,
you're looking at content.
You're looking at 3 hours of content. 3 hours of content of amazing interviews. So look out for that. We also have a really great interview dropping this Saturday that we did with Leah Malusis. She is she's counsel with the Acacia Group regarding a Christian Heritage Party matter in the city of Hamilton. That's going to be really good too. You're not going to want to miss that one. So amazing stuff to finish the year strong.
And Andrew, don't forget, I just had a conversation with Dr. Michael Wagner, independent researcher, historian, author, especially focusing on Canadian history, about the recent MOU between Alberta and Ottawa and whether or not that affects Alberta's stake in Canada, or whether or not that's just a lot of political theater. I
Well,
can imagine. I
this
can
episode-
imagine where we would stand on
Well,
it.
later this episode, we're going to talk about the Alberta Citizen Initiative, and there's some things are brewing. Things be brewing in Canada.
But we got to get into it, Andrew. We got to get into it. We have a lot to cover.
So, in case you didn't realize this, most ETFs just follow the crowd, but not Rocklinc. Discover the Rocklinc Principled Equity ETF. It is a focused, actively managed value portfolio designed to capitalize on market inefficiencies through smart, research-driven strategies. What makes Rocklinc stand out? Rigorous research, concentrated holdings, and a commitment to avoiding overpriced stocks. This proven strategy is now accessible on any self-directed platform trading TSX securities. Explore more at rocklinc.com or reach out to info@rocklinc.com. That is link with a C, info@rocklinc.com. Exciting things happening over with our friends at Rocklinc.
Exciting. Yeah, absolutely.
So the story of the day, and really the most concerning story in our episode, and to some shocking, if they've either been falling asleep or not as diligent in these matters
at all attention, right? At all.
You haven't been realizing the trajectory of the last 6 years inevitably takes us to here, and this is another one of those I did tell you so kind of moments. Okay, the Liberal government, with the help of the BLOC Québécois, they continue to drive Canada toward totalitarian hate speech laws that they can say whatever they want about this religious group and this religious text, but let's be clear about what Satan's doing here. He's putting Christians right in the dead center of these crosshairs. Now, what are we talking about? Well, John Carpay from the JCCF has a video he put out not that long ago with a harrowing warning for Canadians regarding Bill C-9. Let's see what he has to say.
Bill C-9, the Combating Hate Act, criminalizes feelings and restricts the free speech of Canadians. Bill C-9 is largely an exercise in virtue signaling because Canadian judges already have the power under the Criminal Code, Section 718, to impose a harsher sentence on a criminal if the crime was motivated by hate. Defining hate is next to impossible. For example, Bill C-9 states for greater certainty, the communication of a statement does not incite or promote hatred solely because it discredits, humiliates, hurts, or offends. So these hate speech laws, disdain and dislike are okay. That's not hate speech. Detestation and vilification, that is hate speech. So you cannot hate or vilify people, but it is okay to discredit, humiliate, hurt, offend, and dislike them. Obviously not a clear standard that citizens can ever know if they are within or outside of the bounds of the law. Bill C-9 gets rid of an important protection currently whereby the Attorney General has to consent to a hate speech prosecution. Bill C-9 will scrap that so that every policeman can decide subjectively if he or she feels that something is hateful. The prosecution can proceed immediately. It does not need to be reviewed by the Attorney General. Bill C-9 criminalizes the display of the Nazi swastika and provides for up to 2 years in jail for displaying that symbol. It does not take into account that the swastika is an ancient Sanskrit symbol for prosperity and good fortune, and there are Hindus and Buddhists in Canada and around the world who display a swastika on the outside of their house as a religious symbol for prosperity and good fortune. So hopefully, if Bill C-9 passes into law, the Canadian police will be able to understand the difference between the Nazi swastika and the religious Asian swastika. Unsurprisingly, Bill C-9 does not criminalize displaying the communist hammer and sickle, even though that was the symbol under which the communists in Russia, China, Vietnam, Cambodia murdered tens of millions of people. So it seems like the underlying philosophy is that it's killing people on the basis of their ethnicity is worse than killing people on the basis of their economic class or social group. Justice Minister Sean Fraser claims that Bill C-9 is going to protect people entering a house of worship from intimidation. It's a half-truth. In fact, uttering threats and intimidation, physical obstruction are already crimes. They're already prohibited by the criminal code. So to add on an extra layer of protection for people entering houses of worship, it's a little bit disingenuous. It's interesting that when Sean Fraser introduced Bill C-9, he said it was to respond to rising anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, transphobia, and homophobia, and conspicuous by its absence, there is no reference at all to the arson and burning of dozens of churches across Canada. That seems to be not on the minister's radar screen, which again suggests that this is a very political piece of legislation. I'm John Carpay. Thanks for listening.
So yeah, not being on the radar lets him know who's in the crosshairs. That's the point.
Yeah, and John is very much a lawyer, and he's being very measured in even what he's saying. Although I do appreciate his level. Like, you can tell John has disdain for this bill, rightful disdain for it, and that comes through, even though he is obviously very careful in his language. But essentially, what does that say, Andrew? Well, John's saying any of the so-called protections that Bill C-9 is adding are superfluous. These are all already protections offered to Canadian citizens under the law, and the ill-defined, vague, even category of hate speech legislation is being fueled up with more power, and the some of the constraints on the way that it can be used and interpreted by law enforcement, those constraints are being done away with. So the fact of the matter is, as it currently stands, there is problematic situations as it pertains to hate speech law in Canada. But because some of the constraints on the use of it have been in place, it's actually made it a lot less frequent where these cases of hate speech are coming up in everyday Canadian life. But with those restrictions removed, it's going to happen a lot more frequently, and it's going to be subject to the whims of police officers who are not themselves legal experts, and who themselves are probably going to be, it's going to be spurious how they decide which is which, and it's a lot of times going to be politically motivated, like John's talking about.
So that video was from a couple months ago, and this is the warning of Bill C-9 then. So what we want to get into are some recent updates and developments just from a couple days ago. So this here comes from the National Post. Quote, "The Liberals have agreed to remove religious exemptions from Canada's hate speech laws to secure BLOC Québécois support to help pass its bill targeting hate and terror symbols," the National Post has learned. Currently, the law exempts hateful or anti-Semitic speech if it's based in good faith on the interpretation of a religious text, but that immunity is set to be removed. Additionally, the Liberals are expected to back off plans to eliminate the need for a provincial attorney general sign-off to pursue a hate propaganda prosecution. The removal of the religious exemption is expected to come via an amendment to the criminal code in the form of Bill C-9 at the Parliamentary Justice Committee that will be supported by both the Liberals and the BLOC, a senior government source confirmed. "We do have BLOC partnership," the source said. "The bill is in place now, even with those BLOC amendments, that everyone is happy," they added in reference to the Liberal and BLOC MPs. "It seeks multiple changes to the criminal code to confront the issue of hate, with the Liberals citing a rise in police-reported incidents in recent years, particularly in the wake of sustained anti-Israel protests over the last 2 years. Chief among the proposed changes is creating a new offense for intimidating someone to the point of blocking their access to a place of worship or another center used by an identifiable group, as well as criminalizing the act of promoting hate by displaying hate or terror by displaying a hate or terror symbol, such as one tied to a listed terrorist organization or a swastika. Close quote. So we're getting there. It's not just pie in the sky. By the way, if anyone remembers, you might think, where'd this come from? Well, not that long ago, when this was first introduced as Bill 369, which is Bill 367, which was a private member's bill put forth by an NDP MP.
Mm-hmm.
We covered this. So at the same time that Bill C-63 was working its way through, and everyone was really worried about Bill C-63, we were drawing attention to Bill 367 or 369. I can't remember which one. Doesn't matter. The private member's bill put forth by the NDP MP that was the original version of this.
Yeah.
That this bill was the one that said, let's remove the religious text exemption if it's based on sincerely held religious beliefs founded in a religious text. And it was at that point, when everyone was freaking out about Bill C-63, which they should, that we were calling attention. This is at least a year ago, maybe more, that we were calling attention to this private members bill, saying this is the real deal, because you can have whatever hate speech laws you want. If you still grant exemption because of deeply held religious beliefs based on a religious text, then you're okay. So the hate speech laws are dangerous, but but the real danger is this: you remove the exemption. And we were saying this was a big issue, and then it kind of went away, and now here it's back again, to the surprise of no one who's been paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Andrew, the same article that you have been referencing continues. The opposition conservatives have lambasted the current effort as censorship, rightfully so, saying provisions already exist, like John told us, within criminal law to counter hate, and that the bill's proposal to remove the requirement for provincial attorney generals, the AGs, consent to lay a hate propaganda charge took away an, quote, important safeguard, according to the party. The Liberals are now expected to accept another amendment eliminating that change from the bill entirely. That, too, was a bloc request. When the bill was first presented back in September, the Liberals argued that removing the AG requirement would help streamline the process of laying hate propaganda charges. Right? Just like I said, they want to make it easier.
Yeah. Can we just, I just want to address that for a second.
Yeah.
That the Liberals said we need to punish people for hate faster, quicker, and more efficiently.
Yes.
It's almost 1984.
Yeah.
It's the instruction manual for the Liberals. It's let's do everything we can to get people into re-education camps sooner.
Yes,
sooner, quicker, please. Let's remove all the red tape.
Yeah, exactly. So it would streamline the process of laying hate propaganda charges, while critics said it was an additional check, which it obviously was, on a charge with serious implications for freedom of speech. Once the amendments are passed, the Liberals and BLOC are expected to vote the bill through committee and the House of Commons. However, it is unclear when the Justice Committee will debate clause-by-clause amendments to the bill. The House is scheduled to rise on December the 12th. The original text of the bill did not contain changes to the existing religious defenses for hate speech, but the no good, very bad Bloc Québécois, that horrible disaster of a regional, ethnocentric party, has consistently raised the need for it to be addressed because their religion is secularism and they want to destroy all other blasphemers, obviously. Section 319 of the Criminal Code contains an exemption stating no person shall be convicted of promoting hateful or anti-Semitic speech if they expressed, quote, in good faith, an opinion, quote, based on a belief in a religious text, end quote. The amendment eliminating the religious exemptions defense is expected to reprise a bill tabled by the BLOC in November 2023 that proposed to erase it from the criminal code. That bill did not advance past first reading. Many Christian organizations and certain civil liberty groups have supported the exemption, arguing that it serves as an important protection of freedom of speech. In submissions to the Justice Committee, the Christian Legal Fellowship argued the defenses, quote, exist to protect Canadians against imprisonment for good faith expressions of sincerely held beliefs, end quote. Continuing, quote, to remove this defense would risk undermining the constitutional integrity of the entire regime, it warned. So this is serious stuff. And
if we might just get people up to date, this whole good faith thing, this came out not that long ago when Mark Miller was the one who said that there's no room for hate in Canada, that saying that, sodomy is wrong is hateful, and that's not who we are as Canadians. So this is what he said. Mark Miller said, quote, this, nobody should be committing a hate crime in the name of religion. So that's what Mark Miller said. Okay. Mark Miller, just in case everyone doesn't know this, just a few days ago on December 1st, has now been sworn in as the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and the minister responsible for official languages. So let's just put all this together here for anyone who's, again, not paying attention. The person who apparently is now in charge of what defines Canadian identity and culture is saying that there is no room in Canada for hate speech, i.e. expressing various religious views. And that's so now saying that we believe that marriage is between one man and one woman and it is a God-designed institution. Bill C-4 already says that this is a harmful stereotype and myth. But now, Bill C-9, in conjunction with Mark Miller, what they're saying is anyone who expresses those views, such a person or such a view has no place in Canadian culture or identity. That's what's going on now. You see this? That it's not just about that's your hateful view, but what's being the package that's being given to us is if you express these views, which are traditional Christian views, that view and ultimately you have no place in Canadian culture or identity.
But Andrew, it's
a very dangerous place to be.
I think it's even worse than that, though, functionally, because when Miller was talking in the longer segment that the quote that you're talking about, he makes a specific reference to biblical texts within Scripture that he calls hateful and bigoted, and one would assume that even quoting something like Romans 1, right? Romans 1, 18 through 32, Leviticus 19, many of these passages that target, behaviors that are out of keeping with God's good created order and out of lockstep with the Holy Spirit. And traditionally, let's be honest, most of them were abhorrent, illegal behaviors in Canadian history. If you would even read those passages in the Bible, if you would preach from them, if you would teach from them in fidelity to the Word of God, that you would open yourselves up to hate speech laws. Yeah.
And that there's no room for that. There's no room for that Bible in Canadian culture and identity. That what Mark Miller is, what is happening right now is the federal government is saying that's not what it means to be Canadian. That's what they're saying. If you believe these things, if you express these things, if you read that book, That's not what it means to be Canadian. That's not who we are in Canada. That's what's happening right now.
Which, to put it plainly, they're saying if you're a Bible believing Christian, you cannot be a Canadian within.
You're not
scheme.
a Canadian. Yeah, you don't belong in Canada. You do not believe in and accept our Canadian culture and identity.
Yeah,
if you're a Bible believing Christian.
And actually, further than that, you deserve to be thrown in prison and are fined. Like, you are a criminal. It's not only you're not a Canadian, you're a criminal. You're a menace to society. That is what, and they're partnering with, like I said, an ethnocentric regional party that has support in only one province in Canada. That I remind Quebecers that had to pass a secularism in government law, basically that they made their government secular because it wasn't, right? If it was, you wouldn't have to actually do that, but they did have to do that, showing that was never the case. And now, since they've undergone further legal revolution in commitment to their God, which is secularism, humanism, they're now furthering their vested interests in the entire nation of Canada, and at the expense of clearly articulated charter rights and freedoms. So that's where we are in Canada. It's bleak. It's really bleak. And unfortunately, despite some of what I'm actually thankful for is some of the conservative pushback. I look at guys like Andrew Lawton, Dr. Matt Strauss, some of these newer, conservative voices, Jamil Javani, on these issues are doing a far better job than what we saw with the passage of a former Bill C-4. But it seems like even the conservatives right now don't have the strength in which they need to stop a coalition of the BLOC and the Liberals from ramming this through. And it's going to have serious implications for law. And if you want to know more about that, we will get into the nitty gritty with John Carpay in our 350th episode, which you're definitely going to want to tune in because we'll be picking his brain about what is, especially the implications of Bill C-9 if it should go forward for religious institutions, and what's going on with property rights in Canada after the Cowichan decision. So those are two immensely important legal decisions that are potentially going to change the legal landscape in Canada forever, that we have to be aware of. And you already mentioned it, Andrew. We'll also be talking to Leah Malusis about how this CHP case that's going before an appellate court in Ontario has that type of ramification for law in Canada. So this is, again, where I want to remind people, you have to wake up. You have to share these episodes. You have to, as fired up as you were in the midst of the COVID pandemic, you have to find that same level of energy in fighting these sorts of things, because though it might not have the same scope and it might not be as overt, it might be more covert, these types of things can change Canadian law and policy forever. And we just have to be aware of the fact that this is going on right now in our society, and we have a duty to push back.
Through the roof.
Food costs went up 10.6% in February.
Censorship of dissident voices, freezing of bank accounts.
Justin Trudeau invoking emergency powers against the truckers. Banks can now freeze their personal accounts, the accounts of anyone linked to the Freedom Convoy.
Digital surveillance and communism spreading.
What do we want?
Basic income! With the basic income, and I felt a sense of security because I didn't have to worry about not going hungry, and I didn't have to worry about being kicked out of my apartment.
The government is on the verge of bankruptcy and they're coming for your money.
Canada's federal debt increasing in real time, now surpassing $1.2 trillion. This debt is draining taxpayer dollars, with interest alone costing $54 billion this year.
It's time to break free and start saving in money they can't take from you. Since 2013, the folks at Bull Bitcoin have one mission: destroy central banking. Bull Bitcoin is the most trusted Bitcoin company in Canada. They empower you to buy, sell, and pay bills with Bitcoin. They are 100% non-custodial, which means that you always maintain full control over your Bitcoin, allowing you to reclaim your financial sovereignty and secure your wealth for the future. Their customer support will assist you throughout the whole process, helping you get your hands on the hardest money ever created. Escape their financial gulag. Click on the link below and start buying Bitcoin today. Man, oh man. Well, while the state purports to be about protecting Canadians, guarding our freedoms, and keeping us safe from hate speech and swastikas and all that stuff via
as
bills,
they say, as they take away our freedoms. Yes,
via bills like Bill C-9.
Always for our safety, Andrew. Always for our safety.
The truth is that our civil government supports the destruction of human life at all stages, and in fact, Canada is a world leader in all kinds of murders. This is a feather in the cap of what it means to be Canadian, is maple syrup, hockey, poutine, and a world leader in all sorts of murders. That's Canada's identity now on the world stage. So we do live in a truly ghoulish nation that can say we care about safety and the well-being of Canadians, and yet we lead the world in the way that we murder various Canadians in various percentages. So this next story is from LifeSite News. Quote, death by doctor-assisted lethal injection under the title medical assistance in dying now accounts for over 5% of all deaths in Canada. In November, Health Canada published the 6th annual report on medical assistance in dying, which tracked the expansion of euthanasia in 2024, with 16,499 Canadians receiving MAID, amounting to 5.1% of the total deaths in Canada. The Government of Canada will continue its work to help ensure that the legislation on MAID reflects the needs of people in Canada, protects those who may be vulnerable, and supports autonomy and freedom of choice, the report asserts. I don't know how you can protect those who are vulnerable if you kill them, but again, there's that double speak. Okay, there's that double speak that we protect the vulnerable people by killing them. That's how we protect them.
It's so
ending
gross. It's so unbelievably gross.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So the article continues. Health Canada noted that MAID is not considered a cause of death by the World Health Organization, and therefore, the number of MAID provisions should not be compared to cause of death statistics in Canada in order to determine the prevalence, the proportion of all decedents, nor to rank MAID as a cause of death, which it is. But we live in bizarro world. However, the government agency did admit that just under 16,500 people received MAID in 2024, again, which amounted to 5.1% of people who died in Canada. The report noted that this was a small 0.4 increase from 2023. Oh, so we're only killing these people less than we were the year before. Wowzers, that's so great. Adding that this percentage may change with final counts of deaths in Canada from Statistics Canada. They definitely will. Notably, the year-over-year increase was 6.9%, a significant slowdown from prior years, such as the 36.8% increase from 2019 to 2020. Health Canada suggests that MAID provisions are beginning to stabilize, though long-term trends require more years of data. According to the data, 95.6% of the deaths were track 1, meaning those whose death was foreseeable. compared to only 4.4% being on track 2 requests, which end the lives of those who are not terminally ill but have lost the will to live due to their having chronic health problems. Although track 2 provisions represent 4.4% of MAID cases in 2024, they represent close to a quarter, 24.2% of all MAID requests that were assessed as ineligible, the report stated. So 5% of all deaths. Now, keep in mind, that's not 5% of all intentional life taking.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This isn't 5% of just the intentional life taking via murder. This is this number, then the number would be higher, right? If it was a percentage of only the intentional life taken, right? Outright murder, and obviously this doesn't include infanticide, that's not in here. But if this includes all death, including people who fell out of trees, people who had heart attacks. So if you take unintentional death out, the percentage is way higher. But still,
Andrew,
everyone who died in Canada, 1 out of every 20, think about 1 out of every 20 people who died in Canada last year died because a doctor murdered them with their consent. That is bananas.
Yes. And
Canada leads the world, by the way. We lead the world. I just want to
point out, I wonder what the numbers look like, because I doubt they're in the cause of death. Is abortion listed as a cause of death?
No.
In these statistics. So
no.
I wonder what you're looking at when you're adding the MAID numbers to abortion numbers in Canada. The amount of death at the hands of the state for innocent and infirm people, or, the most vulnerable innocent people in our nation, is astronomical. And I like how they just talked, Andrew, they just kind of waved their hand over, it was just a modest 0.4% increase, which literally accounts for 660 lives. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Let's find it right now. We're going to find it right now.
Okay. This is live.
In 2024, approximately 330,000 people died in Canada. Okay. So that doesn't include infanticide. They would never include that. Nor, by the way, does that include death via IVF, which if we're going to be honest about that number, right? If we look at sterility and fertility's research and what we know, essentially for every 1 baby born via IVF, 14 to 18 are discarded, and roughly for every 1 baby that's murdered via regular infanticide, you have anywhere from 3 to 5 babies who die via IVF. So let's just go on the low end. Okay, the low
300,000 a year.
Right. So 100,000 babies.
So 400,000.
100,000 babies are murdered each year through standard infanticide, through standard preborn baby murder. Another 300,000 are murdered because they're put into eternal cryosleep or they're thrown into the garbage. That means more babies die each year in Canada
than everyone else.
All other deaths combined, intentional and accidental.
Yes.
And if we include the MAID deaths in there, that just makes the number even worse. So that's our nation.
Yeah.
That's our nation. More babies are murdered than all other deaths in the country combined. We are the world leader in murdering our own people as a percentage of the population, right? Not straight numbers, because we're a smaller country, but as a percentage of our population, one could argue that no one murders as many of its own people as Canada does.
Yeah. So with those rough estimates that we've done, that would the total of government assisted and facilitated legal murders in our society would be 500,000 500,650. Do I have that right?
No, it'd be 400,000 So if we just look at 2024, you have 400,000. Now, again, they said that the issue with MAID is that not all the numbers are in yet from Stats Canada. So let's say we bump it up to 20. You're looking at 420,000 deaths of people who would otherwise be alive at the hands of medical professionals. So no one murders more people in Canada than medical professionals.
Yeah,
it's like it's not even close. Not even close to any gangs or guns or knives. No one murders more than 50% of all deaths in Canada each year, including the very tiny babies, come at the hands of medical professionals.
Yeah, I mean we're like,
there you go.
Like that's actually the crazy part is, we're getting to the point where it's like a 2-to-1 ratio of and that's what I was trying to get at, of state sanctioned murder to actual deaths for all causes in Canada. So by far.
Oh, by the way, that doesn't include. Here's another thing. That doesn't include the morning after pill or Plan B, which we could argue, because that's. I mean, I've talked to John Speed. That could probably equal the number of tracked infanticides, and it's probably greater. Probably greater, like 2-to-1. So that number, if you include that, which again are medical sanctioned deaths, the number could be around 600,000.
Yeah,
that's 60%. That's 60% of all, or close to 65% of all deaths are at the hands of medical professionals or medically sanctioned murders.
Well, and the absurdity of all of this is we live in a nation that has a Supreme Court that has ruled that the death penalty for even crimes of terrorism, mass murder is it's out of keeping with human dignity. So we live in a country that won't give those who forfeit life by the taking or severe abuse of other people's lives. That's out of the
death
dignity
penalty.
The
Supreme Court believes that it's inhumane to give a minimum 1-year jail sentence to child sexual offenders.
But they will give literally a life sentence to the weak and the infirm.
But that makes sense, though. But doesn't that make sense?
Yes.
The same Supreme Court that says if you sexually abuse a child, we're not going to punish you to the full extent of the law.
Especially if you're an immigrant.
Of course, that same Supreme Court would say, well, then just murder kids indiscriminately.
Yeah.
Clearly, they don't care about children.
No.
Clearly, they don't, except when they're used as political pawns for residential schools, which, by the way, they also don't care about them, because in case anyone forgets, the whole residential school debacle comes at the behest of the state. That was a state-sanctioned initiative where many churches, unfortunately, allowed themselves to become the activist arm of the state. But even the residential school fiasco, that lies at the feet of the state. So if anyone hates your children or children in general, it is the state. They hate children and are murdering them at insane rates in Canada, and they're not protecting them from child predators either. This is on our heads, Canada. This blood is all over our heads collectively as a nation.
Yeah, so we have murder, state-sanctioned murder happening at the end of life with so-called MAID and the beginning of life with abortion and IVF and all these sorts of, eugenic experiments that we're performing on human individuals. But this story comes to us from the Post-Millennial. Late-term abortions can reportedly be performed without medical reason in Canada. Quote, there does not have to be a specific medical concern that is named in order to get an abortion after the first trimester, said T.K. Pritchard, an executive director of Abortion Care Canada. Pritchard's response was in reference to video taken secretly by my friend Alyssa Golub, co-founder of Right Now, a pro-life organization, when she was about 5 months pregnant. Golub was interested in learning whether she could receive a late-term abortion. Quote, no questions asked, specifically for no medical reason, according to the National Post. Golub was told by an employee that their facility's limit was 24 weeks of gestation, but that later term abortions could be referred to a nearby hospital that, quote, sometimes goes up to 32 weeks, end quote. Meeting with an abortion provider, Golub was told when she asked if her health needed to be at risk for a referral to the hospital that, quote, abortion care like that hasn't existed since 1960s, end quote. The provider added, quote, I can tell you that once things reach 35 to 36 weeks, it might be impossible to find someone that would do it, okay? 24 up to 30 weeks, it's very possible, end quote. And was told, start of a new quote, no, absolutely not, when asked if her health had to be at risk. In another video from a Vancouver abortion clinic, someone that appeared to be a social worker told Golub, then just under 24 weeks along, said that about 60% of unplanned pregnancies end in abortion, quote, because people are like, it's not the right time. I'm not ready. Life has been so uncertain these last few years, end quote. Or just, quote, don't want to be pregnant, per the Post. The employee reportedly said, but there doesn't have to be a reason. So there you go. Late-term abortions on demand for no reason at all in Canada. And anybody who's been paying attention knows this happens. It's an open secret, but it's an open secret further exposed. And thankful for the work of Alyssa Scott with Right Now at doing this undercover work, because it's something that everybody knew took place, but liberals who are delusional idiots and evil wanted to deny it, and this just takes away all plausible deniability. We have the footage.
This leads into what we want to talk about next, because as a result of this footage and this research and this undercover work, this has caused many Liberal MPs to collectively set their purple hair on fire. Okay?
Of course.
Because but we said this, but you said this, but and now you actually have on social media, you have Liberal MPs contradicting one another. You have some saying, no, that's not true. The whole late-term abortion thing is a false flag. And others are saying, no, that's right, for no reason. We protect women and women's reproductive rights and blah, blah, blah. So this has caused quite the firestorm within the Liberal Party. So this is from LifeSite News. Quote, the report opens up with the admission that a letter by former Liberal MP Dr. Carolyn Bennett published in 2013 was inaccurate. Bennett had claimed that, quote, the assertion that late-term abortions can be performed for any reason, for no reason at all, it's just not true, close quote. But as the NP noted, National Post, quote, in fact, there need not be a medical reason for later gestational age abortion in Canada, according to Abortion Care Canada, formerly the National Abortion Federation of Canada, close quote. Frédéric Chabot, Executive Director of Action Canada for Sexual Health and Rights, insisted that the videos were, his words, heavily edited, deceptive, heavily narrative. She then went on to admit that in Canada, Frédéric is a she? I thought it was a guy. It doesn't matter. Frenchies, doesn't matter what they are. They're all the same. Okay, so in Canada, we have nothing that criminalizes abortion care at any point in the pregnancy. There's no criminal law that says at this random time, this is when abortion will not be provided. She could have just said, Golub is right. The chaotic, rage-fueled, deceitful response of abortion activists is crazy. Golub's undercover investigation triggered a follow-up column by pro-choice National Post columnist Chris Selly, who accurately described the meltdown. The National Post weekend story about the realities of late-term abortions in Canada, namely that they're available, although many OBGYNs won't perform them, and that women needn't provide any medical reason for requesting such a procedure, produced some very interesting responses. Many could be filed under S for spittle-flecked denial. Golub's investigation, he noted, should not have surprised anyone. And it's interesting that so many abortion rights campaigners clearly think it's so controversial that they want to disbelieve their ears and eyes. He added, and this is particularly incisive, if I didn't know better, I would almost think that those advocates aren't entirely comfortable with the practice they're defending. Close quote.
You think?
Right. Because even though radical corruption abounds in the hearts, minds, and souls of human beings who have not been born again in Christ, and even though those who are not in Christ are enslaved to Satan, who is their master and father, and their eyes have been blinded by the prince of demons, they cannot escape the reality that they are image bearers of God, that his law has been written on their hearts, that they are without excuse, and even they know that this is an evil, vile, satanic practice. And rather than coming out in the open, some do, but rather than coming out in the open and saying, it happens, we love it, it satiates our bloodlust, something deep within them, the image of God bleeds through, and they have to try to cover it up because they know it's so vile and so reprehensible. And if ever there were evidence of a moral law and a moral lawgiver, it would be this.
Yes. And it's important, Andrew, as someone who for many years stood on a corner and had conversations while holding abortion victim photography. It's important to note it's not just the pictures of highly developed late term abortions where you can, really distinguish all the parts of a murdered and dismembered baby, but it's even the earlier abortions that engender this type of response. Because why? Because, as you say, even though the image of God is marred in them, even though their consciences are seared, they still know intuitively that killing innocent human life, even at the earliest stage, is abhorrent, it's wrong, it's murder, and it should be rejected outright. They know it.
This is why Russell Hunter makes this point in his videos when people freak out. He says, so people will freak out and be totally demonic, and they'll just run away in a flurry of swearing and expletives, and then Russ will turn to someone and say, that person is probably someone that murdered their baby, and they feel immensely guilty. The shame and the guilt weighs heavy on them because they know it's wrong and because they're image bearers of God. So even though they reject God, he's probably right a lot of the time that they have engaged in that same murder, and it has totally ruined them on the inside because they know that it's murder, that it's evil, and they cannot bear to live with their own guilt and shame. So they must deflect and respond with anger and hatred rather than say, and this is the reality, rather than saying what they do say, which is, I'm not a mom because I had an abortion. They would rather say that than the truth, which is, I'm the mother of a murdered baby. Like that's
my own murdered baby.
This is how they get around it, right? Yeah. Rather than saying, I'm not a mom, right? I'm not a mom. I had an abortion. But what they really need to say, or what they know to be true, is that I am a mother and my child is dead because I murdered it. But they can't admit that with their lips because it's the truth. So in anger, they cover it up. They know. They totally know.
Yeah. And I think that's also exposed in how angry and the vitriol that comes out when you're exposing how violent and bloody the act of abortion actually is. When you're showing people the evidence of the act, is people are like, you can't show that to people. That's horrible. That's gruesome. It's violent. You should never show that to anybody. And all we're doing is showing visible evidence of a murder that took place. And if the visible evidence of that murder is as bad as they're making it out to be, how much worse is the actual practice that led to this outcome? How much worse is that? Like, this is the visual evidence.
I know they don't have a problem. I know they don't have a problem with the actual image or with the violent nature of it, because I'm sure, maybe not all, but I'm sure a good percentage of those people have no problem watching absolutely gross
flicks and exactly.
Just gross scenes of people being eaten, ripped apart by zombies. I mean, they probably don't relish it, but they probably watch it and they think, okay, that's gross, but whatever, I'm watching a movie. So it's not the gore, it's not the bloodshed, it's not the violence.
No.
It's the fact that it is a real person
that represents a real murder.
They probably participated in it themselves.
Yeah.
But again, exactly. This is Canada. This is who we are as a nation collectively. And now we're gonna go to jail for saying that men can't be women. This is where we're at, folks. Buckle up.
But our state can just murder its own citizens.
Yeah.
Remember when Canada was a land of boundless promise, where families built thriving communities on faith, freedom, and hard work? A time when you leave your doors unlocked, neighbors were friends, and we sang our anthem with pride. Canada was respected worldwide, a rugged land full of resolute and virtuous people. We were builders forging farms from the untamed wilderness, raising strong families and forging our destiny. But now a shadow has fallen over our great nation. Creeping tyranny, the erosion of God-given rights, and cultural division have dimmed that bright promise. We yearn to reclaim what made us a true North, strong and free. We saw Canada's spirit cracking and wanted to do something. With Resistance Coffee Company, we saw an opportunity to build something bigger. Our nation was forged in the fires of adversity, and we saw an opportunity to help lay a foundation for a bright future, rebuild through that same commitment to hard work, courage, and the principles that made our nation great. Our mission is not just about crafting excellent coffee. It's about fueling everyday Canadians to stand resolute against the tide and rebuild the Canada we love. Our goal is to inspire a movement that rebuilds Canada on the bedrock of faith, freedom, and responsibility. Each sip strengthens the resolve to reclaim our nation's proud legacy. We stand for freedom, hard work, human dignity, the rule of law, personal responsibility, the traditional family, the supremacy of God, and a resolute hope for our future. These aren't fringe values. These are the core truths that build Canada. We source specialty grade premium beans and precision roast them fresh for every batch to ensure delicious flavor in every cup. From vibrant light roasts to bold dark blends, each cup is meticulously and carefully crafted, delivering unmatched quality. As a family-run Canadian company, we serve thousands with coffee and content as bold as our mission.
Hey, if you like that guy, go buy that coffee. But also, he'll be a part of our 350th episode, so tune in on that on December 19th.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
If you'd like the guy, go buy that coffee. Yes, you should.
Yeah, you should. All right, Andrew, let's wrap up with a few more stories of what's going on in our crazy nation. And this first one comes to us from Juno News. Prime Minister Mark Carney may be preparing a major cabinet overhaul, according to Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley. Lilley says the shuffle is designed to shed Trudeau-era loyalists and bring in new faces as Carney works to put his own stamp on the Liberal Party. One of the most high-profile departures is expected to be Industry Minister Mélanie Joly, who is reportedly eyeing the post of Canada's ambassador to France, because this is the position that all the Liberals get when they are useless idiots and they, anyways. Her potential exit, along with the possible departures of Chrystia Freeland, who's going to be the ambassador to corrupt Ukraine, Bill Blair, and Jonathan Wilkinson, would open up several Liberal strongholds for new candidates aligned with Carney's new direction for the party. Brian Lilley believes the cabinet shakeup and key ministers being moved out is about Carney's positioning his government for an election year. That's important to note.
I wonder if the stamp that Carney wants to put on is a stamp of a sickle and a hammer, but made of feces. I think that's the stamp.
Yeah.
Right?
Which
it's
will not be prohibited, as we learned from Bill C-9. So he's good to use it.
Poop sickle hammer everywhere. Poop sickle hammer everywhere.
Yeah. No, that would be far too honest for Mark's commie to go around to do that. The interesting part, Andrew, is I literally think if you go back to him filling in for Trudeau after Trudeau's resignation prior to the federal election at the beginning of this year, Mark Carney, in the short amount of time, and I think we're still under a calendar year, this would be the 4th cabinet shakeup. That's actually incredible. So it's amazing to me, Andrew, that the Liberals are in, they're in their 10th year of reign. They are supposedly the adults in the room who can really deal with the issues that Canada's facing, but they're so unstable internally that they've gone through 4 cabinet shakeups just in the Carney era. And that doesn't even go back to Trudeau, who before he resigned, there was like a litany of cabinet shuffles. Yeah. So over the last, 2 or 3 years, Canada's government under the Liberals has been immensely ineffectual and totally backwards.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter though, because they're all just figureheads. That the really the federal cabinet is WEF agents.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter who's there. It doesn't matter who's shift around. It's WEF young leadership graduates.
Yes.
Globalists.
The globalist uniparty. The globalist uniparty. Anyways, I just think it's really funny because we're supposed to be lauding these individuals as somehow capable leaders, but they themselves can't lead even in their own party worth anything. Anyways, we also have a wild story which comes to us from Juno News again. Frances Widdowson herself, I'm pretty sure she was pretty much a commie, but a Mount Royal University professor and author of Dead Wrong, was arrested at the University of Victoria on Tuesday after being told that she, one BC interim party leader Dallas Brody, and former school teacher Jim McMurty were not welcome on the university's campus. Widdowson, Brody, McMurty, and others planned to attend the campus for a peaceful discussion with students, faculty, media, and public about the widely disseminated and disputed 2018 claim that the remains of 215 children were discovered in unmarked graves at the Kamloops Residential School. A live stream posted on X by Chris Erickson showed the group being trespassed from the campus by what appeared to be members of the Saanich Police Department. Shortly afterwards, multiple posts and images showed Widdowson being directed into a police vehicle. A letter sent to the group ahead of the event noted that Widdowson, Brody, and McMurty specifically were not welcome because they had not gone through, of course, administrative booking process. And on the grounds that they were, there was not enough time, quote, to ensure, of course, adequate safety planning is in place, end quote. Wyatt Claypool, good man, a 1BC staffer who attended the event, told True North multiple assaults occurred and that one individual suffered damage to their property. He added Widdowson was held at the Saanich police station, but she has since been released. So the grifters, the universities that literally allowed a pro-Palestinian occupation of their university for some 2 months will not allow someone to factually discuss. I mean, Juno's being very careful on what they're saying, disputed, and but it's like it's just totally untrue. Like, there's not 250 bodies. That's insane. There's 0 as far as we know, because they refused to do the excavation, which would take all of like 4 hours.
There has been some. That's so we've covered. There has been some excavation
in various different areas, but not in the whole of the Kamloops site. But
nothing's been found.
No, it's
this is our version of the WMDs.
Yes,
they got them. They don't got them. They're not there. Nope. Nope, not there.
Although, this one is rooted more in ethnic Gnosticism than the other ones, because people have to remember the Beaulieu or whatever the lady's name report. Literally, her one of the main criterias that she was using to determine the 215 remains of, literally, they said, of children as like young as 3 were a tooth and a jawbone that were supposedly found that were not human remains.
Well, and also the native spidey sense.
Yes,
right?
yes, and literally the knowledge of Kamloops Indian elders and the anomalies. So there was three sources of evidence. 1, definitively not human remains. 2, anomalies that cannot be deciphered through ground penetrating radar, and then 3, Indian spidey senses.
and four drugs.
No, I don't even think. I mean, unless if you want to, if the high, the drug, the anticipation of furthering the Aboriginal grift, if that was a part of it, maybe, but I think it was primarily spidey senses. Like, that's the best they've done.
So it wasn't like that Steven Seagal movie On Deadly Ground, where he had to go through this native trial, and then at the end it involved cold weather and some sort of smoking of a thing, and then a weird vision where he becomes a bear coming out of the water. That's what I mean. It was one of those kind of, right? If you've seen that movie, he has to go through this trial.
Nobody's seen that movie.
I've seen it. It's very On Deadly Ground. So
that's a deep cut, Andrew. That's a deep cut.
Steven Seagal. Okay, so Steven Seagal in the movie On Deadly Ground, he is sent because apparently he works for an organization that's polluting in the water, and it's destroying animals, and the natives there are very upset and they're mistreated by the people. So he ends up actually doing what's right, but he has to go on this kind of spiritual trial quest that involves him going, out into the Arctic area, and it's very cold, and he's hungry and he's tired, and also it involves a little bit of smoke and a little bit of a pipey thing. And then he has these crazy visions, and then he becomes a bear coming out of the water, and then he's the bear, and then you're the bear now. And so I'm wondering, is that also the kind of thing that's playing into I had the pipe and the trial and the water, and I came out of the bear. Oh, and look, there are kids in the ground. Could see that I could see that that's really one of the only ways to adequately explain how they came up with this ludicrous idea is they became the bear out of the water after the pipe and the trial and the snow and very cold and Steven Seagal. And it all comes together. It all really comes together. And I think there's something here that needs to be explored. I think I want to put forth my own theory that Steven Seagal is the one who put the kids there after he slaughtered them because he became the bear and the pipe and he had a hallucination, and then here we are. And I think that's what we need to be exploring. What did Steven Seagal have to do with
the Kamloops residential school?
He's really let himself go. He's fallen from grace. He's not the same. Apparently his whole Aikido career is now up in the air. It's not legit. There's all sorts of stuff going on. I think maybe he took a turn for the worse. He had a little too much of that pipe. I'm the bear. He took it too seriously. And he put the kids there, and we need to find him now, wherever he is, and we need to question him. Are you behind this, Steven Seagal? We need to get to the bottom of this, and that is probably a more realistic scenario than what they're putting forth with regards to the residential schools. It's probably
he
more.
looks horrible now.
Yeah, we'll probably get to the truth faster by finding Steven Seagal and asking him about the bear and the pipe thing than actually finding bodies underneath the residential school. So
does he consider himself like some sort of Indian guru? Because I notice he has like the wheel of samsara like around his neck, which is like the karmic.
I think he has a lot to do with this residential school thing. I think we need to find him. We need to question him. I don't know what Mark's commie's waiting for, but if they want to get to the bottom of this,
contact Steven Seagal.
Forget about the native Spidey sense. Forget about the GPR. Forget about all that nonsense.
Yeah.
Find Steven Seagal.
No,
he's the answer to all of this. He's the piece.
At first, I was kind of like, Andrew, why are you wasting like 10 minutes of our episode talking about this insane theory? But now that you've kind of gone around it, I'm starting to see the logic. So maybe you can help us land this plane. After we cracked the case, we finally got to the behind what happened at Kamloops. Maybe you could finish off the episode for us.
So finally, enough Alberta citizens have actually signed the petition to advance the discussion and potential referendum on Alberta separation. This is a big deal. This is a huge story from the Western Standard. Quote, Elections Alberta has completed verification of the Alberta Forever Canada Citizen Initiative petition, confirming it has met all requirements under the Citizen Initiative Act. Chief Electoral Officer Gordon McClure announced the petition, led by former Alberta Cabinet Minister Thomas Lukaszuk, is successful. The petition, which asked Albertans whether the province should remain in Canada, required 293,976 signatures, or 10% of electors from the 2023 provincial election. Elections Alberta counted 438,568 valid signatures, and after applying a random statistical sampling method with a 95% confidence level, 404,293 were verified, representing 13.6% of registered electors in the province. Following the verification, a copy of the policy proposal was submitted to the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. Under the Citizen Initiative Act, the Assembly must consider the proposal, and a committee may recommend a referendum, which would take place on or before the next provincial election on October 18th, 2027. If approved, Lukaszuk must return all canvasser documents to Elections Alberta, destroy extra copies of signature sheets, and submit a signed affidavit confirming this has been done by December 3rd. The petition process began with approval on June 30th, and the petition was issued on July 30th, 2025. Verification ran from October 28th through December 1st, close quote. This means there is now a path where the province of Alberta will vote on whether or not they stay in Canada. This might actually, now whether or not it passes is a different issue, but the simple fact that nearly 500,000 people in Alberta and electors, so this isn't just 500,000 Albertans, 500,000 of the eligible voting population in Alberta has said we need to leave Canada, and now this might be going to a vote. There might be a referendum on whether this actually happens, and if it does happen, it would have to be on or before the election, which is in just under 2 years.
Yeah. We get into this with Dr. Michael Wagner, Alberta resident, longtime supporter of Alberta separatism, dating all the way back to before the Reform movement, all those things, about this and about how I think it's something like 35% support Alberta separatism right now, which is, though that's not a majority, that's a significant percentage of Albertans, higher than it's ever been, who are supporting separatism. And
I would probably venture that if it went to a vote, every single one of those 35% would go out to vote, but the remaining 65% that's against or neutral, I doubt all 65% would go out to vote. But I'm sure that 35% would be hell-bent on voting, which means you're not dealing with a straight 65-35 breakdown.
No.
It could be a lot closer than that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do think, everybody, including Dr. Wagner, feels like it's probably a long shot to pass and to go through with referendum. But it must be noted that this is that the Alberta separatist movement has always been a creature of Ottawa. It's always been a creation of Eastern Laurentian elites who have deliberately targeted Western sovereignty, Western economic success, and especially Alberta, right?
Mm-hmm.
All
and
Alberta,
this pipeline nonsense recently is certainly not going to make it any less of a chance.
No,
I mean, Danielle Smith was booed.
Yeah,
Danielle Smith, the Trump of Alberta, the savior of Alberta, who recently said that they would be willing to invoke the notwithstanding clause to protect children
on the
and
tranny
not have,
issue. Yeah.
So they love her there.
Yeah.
But the fact that she went ahead with this ridiculous pipeline thing, which is basically just bending over for Ottawa, she was booed by her people. Like, this is not going to help Alberta not separating.
And that was in contrast to, it's not John Reese. It's whatever that guy is, who's kind of one of the faces. He's kind of eccentric guy. I don't think he's the best face for it, but one of the faces of the Alberta separatist movement. He stood up at the same UCP conference, talked about Alberta separatism, and got a standing ovation. So the MOU got booed by the UCP, and the separatism got a standing ovation. And it's not like the UCP itself is like the convention is itself a separatist, haven, right? A lot of UCPers would have traditionally been very federalist, holding on to that kind of Danielle Smith line of, well, Alberta needs to be a part of a strong part of a united Canada. Well, we'll see what happens. But if you want to hear more about this subject, please just hold off for 1 week and you'll get to hear the discussion that I have with Dr. Michael Wagner on this very subject, because it's a fascinating conversation by a content expert on this specific discussion. And he actually gives the most cogent reasons for why Alberta separatism is not only a path forward, but the only legitimate, viable path forward for Alberta. And it's a fascinating discussion that, as someone who's not in Alberta, finds fascinating, because it actually has ramifications for every single province across this nation and the future of Canada as a whole. So if you like that sort of stuff, if you want to get those content, or if that type of content, if you want to ensure that those type of discussions are happening from a specifically Christian perspective, please support us at ldcanada.substack.com. Go over there. It would help us out. Like, subscribe, rate, review, give a thumbs up, do whatever you can to get this content out to more people, because that's how we grow our channels and, raise awareness of Bill C-9 and its radical ramifications. The constant mass death that our government is engaged in, and ongoing assaults of Canadians' freedom up and down this country. It's unbelievable. We talk about it, no holds bar, from a Christian perspective that is totally unapologetic, that you can't get anywhere else. So please support us. And as we say at the end of every episode, it's for freedom that Christ has set you free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to yoke of slavery. Till next time, everybody, God bless.
Liberty Dispatch has been brought to you by SDG Media. If you want to stay in touch with us on all things Liberty Dispatch, join our email list, or support the show, head over to ldcanada.substack.com.